Hello, I'm Jennifer Berry. People often say family should be your safe haven, your truth, but what if your truth is constantly being twisted by them? My sister slapped me right in the middle of a jewelry store, in front of everyone. The only person who stood up for me wasn't even family. Worse than the sting of her hand was a lifetime of small hurts before it, being left out of family photos, blamed for money troubles I didn't cause, and told by my own mother, "You were never meant to lead." So when a rich man called me his wife and told my sister, "Touch her again and see what happens," was that fairness or just the first time someone truly saw me? Would you have stayed quiet for so long? I arrived right on time, not too early, not too late, just enough to avoid looking like the daughter who tried too hard to get noticed. The sun was setting behind the Golden Hills as I parked a couple of blocks from my childhood home. It was now busy with rented lights and beautiful flowers. My sister, Sarah's, wedding dinner practice was tonight, and I apparently had a part to play. Unpaid, uninvited, but expected. The driveway was full, which wasn't a surprise. The Harrington name still held importance in the valley, even if that importance never touched me. I went around to the back entrance, as I was told. My mother didn't want me making a grand entrance that might confuse the workers. She said it kindly, of course, with that fake warmth that had raised me in a controlled, polished mess. Sarah, dressed in a fancy cream dress and holding a clipboard, was telling the lighting crew what to do, with the confidence of someone who had never heard the word no unless she was the one saying it. "Jen," she called over without looking at me, "can you make sure the gift table has the right labels and maybe straighten the name cards at table 5? They're uneven." My mother, hearing this, came over with a kiss to my cheek and a coffee cup, not for me, but for a flower arranger. "Jennifer always had an eye for detail," she said, smiling at the flower arranger instead of me. "She's our secret helper, aren't you, honey?" I nodded. No one noticed. There was no name card with my name on it, not at table 5, not at any table. So I ate near the kitchen, balancing a plate on my lap while the servers refilled the food. I told myself it was fine. I wasn't hungry anyway. That wasn't the first time I'd been put in the background. I remember being 12, lighting every candle for my mom's birthday, while Sarah stood at the front of the room accepting hugs and compliments for the party. I had written the menu by hand, prepared the chicken, and folded the napkins into roses. My father raised his glass and said, "To Sarah, our family's true hostess," and I smiled like I was supposed to. I never corrected anyone. I thought that was being graceful. I thought it made me strong. Back in the present, I watched from the edge of the dinner practice as relatives posed for pictures. Sarah looked amazing in every photo, her cheek kissed by her fiancé, her arm around our mother, their laughter perfectly matched. One of the family friends waved me over for a photo. But just as I stepped forward, Sarah placed a hand lightly on my arm. "You look tired, Jen. Why don't you sit this one out? The light is a bit harsh over here." I nodded. No one noticed. When I got home that night, I didn't cry. I did laundry, I arranged the spices in my cabinet in alphabetical order. I checked my email twice, and I scrolled. There it was on Instagram, posted by my mom. A surprise pre-wedding brunch, matching shirts, a cake with gold letters, and a slideshow playing behind them filled with baby photos. My baby photos. My sister's voice over the video. Family is everything. I wasn't invited. There was no call, no text, just a caption: "Surround yourself with those who matter most." I put the phone down. My apartment felt like it had swallowed sound itself. No one had remembered, or worse, they had remembered and decided I didn't belong. I didn't beg. I didn't call their numbers just to ask why. Instead, I stood in my kitchen and whispered, barely above a breath, "If I don't matter to them, I'll start building a life where I do." The message was short. I typed it, stared at it for 10 seconds, then hit send. "Can we talk this weekend?" I didn't wait for a reply. I went back to counting clothes at the shop. Tuesday afternoons were usually quiet, just me and the soft hum of the ceiling fan. But that day, the silence didn't calm me. It felt heavy on my chest, like thick air in the middle of autumn. A little after 4, the front bell rang. I looked up, expecting one of our regular customers or maybe a delivery. Instead, a woman I didn't know stepped inside. Curious. Tan jacket, big sunglasses, a small bag in her hand, like she was about to walk into a business meeting, not a small shop. "Hi," I greeted her, trying to keep my voice even. She didn't smile. "Are you Jennifer Berry?" "Yes." "You spoke for Sarah Harrington, didn't you?" Her voice was flat, sharp. She told me she was starting a family investment group. It took me a second to understand what she was saying. I'm sorry, I don't know what you mean." Her eyes narrowed. "She said you were her reference, that you told people she was trustworthy. I gave her $25,000, Jennifer. That's not small change." I stared at her, my throat tightening. "I didn't. I never said anything to anyone about any investments. I wasn't even aware of this." She, annoyed. "Then why would she name you? Why would she say you were involved?" I couldn't answer because I didn't know. Because this wasn't the first time something like this had happened. Because my name had been a handy tool in Sarah's life for longer than I wanted to admit. "I'm sorry," I said, calmer than I felt. "I'll speak to her, but please know I didn't approve any of this." She gave me a look like she'd heard that excuse too many times before and left without another word. The store was empty again, but the air had changed. I closed early, couldn't pretend I was in the right mood to smile and offer scarves and nice-smelling candles. On the drive home, I didn't play loud music like usual. I needed clear thoughts, not noise. At my apartment, I poured myself a glass of water, sat on the couch, and dialed. Sarah picked up on the third ring. "Hey, Jen, what's up?" I began. "Someone came into my store today, said you used my name to get money for some investment thing." She was silent for just a moment too long. "Oh, that? I repeated. "Come on," she said, a light behind her words. "I figured it was fine. You're the sensible one. People trust you. I didn't think it'd be a big deal. You used my name without telling me." "Jen, don't be so dramatic. It was just a small thing. You know how these groups work. Everyone speaks for everyone. You're good with people. You calm them down." She said it like it was a compliment, like she'd given me a role to play. "I'm not your human shield, Sarah." There was another pause. "Oh my God, Jennifer, are you seriously upset? Mom said you always take things too far. It's not like I tricked anyone. I'll give it back." "That's not the point," I said, already knowing it was useless. That night, I didn't sleep right away. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling fan as it made slow, steady turns above me. My mind went back to 3 years ago. Sarah was interviewing for a manager job at a charity that helped single mothers get back into work. She'd asked me to help her with her presentation. We'd spent a weekend together, me writing slides, fixing words, coaching her voice. She got the job. At the award dinner, she gave a speech about women helping each other. She never said my name. When she introduced me to the board afterward, she and said, "This is my sister. She's the quiet one." The quiet one. I got in my car the next morning and drove toward the coast. Not for any reason except that I needed to see the ocean. I parked near the cliffs and walked to where the sand met stone. The sky was cloudy, water slow and steady like breathing. I thought about all the times I'd stayed quiet because I thought it was the right thing to do. That silence kept peace. That erasing myself was a formless strength. I wasn't sure anymore. Maybe I'd been wrong. Maybe silence just gave people more room to walk all over me. By the time I returned home, something inside had changed. Not a big explosion, but a fresh start. I pulled out my phone, opened the family group chat, looked at years of holiday gifts, mean reminders about potlucks, and photos where I was always off to the side. Then I deleted it. I went to my contacts, scrolled to a name I'd saved after a legal workshop I helped host last spring. Legal help. I typed one sentence. "Can we talk this weekend?" And this time, I waited for the reply. Then I clicked accept. I stared at the calendar reminder a moment longer before locking my phone and setting it face down on the arm of the couch. The living room had gone quiet, except for the soft hum of the old ceiling fan overhead. Outside, a gentle breeze rustled the orange tree just beyond my kitchen window. I didn't move. Not right away. I stood up eventually, more out of habit than a clear choice, and walked toward the linen closet. Inside, pushed behind a stack of mismatched towels and a faded Christmas table runner, was an old wooden box with metal hinges, the kind my grandfather used to keep his tools in. I pulled it down, brushing away a layer of dust as I sat cross-legged on the floor. Inside were pieces of me I hadn't looked at in over 10 years. Tucked beneath dried flowers and curled edges of photographs was a folded sheet of notebook paper, the kind with the torn edge still clinging on. My handwriting, too neat, too desperate, read, "I wish you'd tell them I helped too." I remembered writing it, 16, hurting with some pain I couldn't name. I had planned to tuck it into his oldest book bag before a school trip. I never did. I kept telling myself I'd outgrow the need to be seen. I unfolded it again, read every word like I was seeing it for the first time. Then I reached for a matchbook in the drawer under the TV. The first flame flickered just past my fingertips before I closed the matchbook again. I didn't burn it. I folded the letter even smaller, tighter, and slipped it into the front pocket of my jeans like it needed to come with me for whatever came next. I leaned back against the couch, closing my eyes. 13 years old. That's when it started for real. Mom and Dad were hosting their 20th wedding anniversary at home. It was going to be small, just close friends, some coworkers. Sarah had volleyball practice and couldn't help, so I stepped in. I planned it, every detail, the schedule, the music, even where everyone would sit. I color-coded the menu based on who had food restrictions. I stayed up until midnight writing the guest cards by hand because our printer broke. The next morning, I found my binder, ribbons added, my writing traced over in silver pen. Sarah's name on the front cover. I froze. I didn't ask. I didn't say a word. She handed the binder to Mom at brunch, who beamed and said, "That's my girl, always the leader." I remember holding my original binder beside the trash can in the garage. I stood there for a long time before finally dropping it in. I told myself back then she needed the win more than I did. And that became my excuse for everything. She needed the attention. She needed to feel capable. I told myself that letting her have it wasn't weakness. It was kindness. It was maturity. It was love. But the truth? It was silence. A silence I had agreed to because it kept the house from falling apart. I opened my eyes. Back in my apartment, the light was dimmer now. Shadows crept along the tile floor. I stood and walked to the mirror above the sink. I stared at my reflection, not for beauty or age or lines I hadn't noticed, but to meet something in my own eyes. "It wasn't okay," I said softly. It didn't echo back physically, but something in the room changed. Something in me, too. For years, I'd believed that being the calm one gave me power. That by being dependable, by stepping aside, I had control over how I was remembered. But what if all it did was teach them how to forget me more easily? A ping from my phone pulled me out of my thoughts. I returned to the couch and tapped the screen. Calendar invite. No subject line, just a title. Confidential meeting, pre-marriage review. Sent by Mr. Smith. My thumb hovered over the screen for a moment before I accepted. And then, instead of putting the phone down, I picked up the little wooden box again and placed it on the shelf, open for the first time. The morning air was cool when I stepped out of my car in the underground garage below Mr. Smith's building. Saturday, just after 10. I hadn't slept much the night before, but not from worry. More like my mind had finally gotten too loud to pretend it wasn't saying things I didn't want to hear. The elevator ride was quiet. No music, no small talk, just the soft hum and numbers changing. When the doors opened, a receptionist greeted me by name and pointed down the hallway. His office wasn't what I expected. Not cold, not overly grand. Sleek, yes, but lived in. A bookshelf with books that weren't just for show. A ceramic bowl with car keys and a scratched wedding ring he probably didn't wear anymore. He looked up from behind a long table, standing as I entered. "Jennifer," he said, simply, pointing to the chair across from him. "Thanks for coming." I sat, smoothing my hands over my skirt, which had wrinkled during the drive. "Let's not pretend this isn't unusual." He-ha-ha, nodding. "Fair enough, but it's honest." He slid a folder toward me. In short, he began, this would be a 1-year legal marriage. No expectations beyond what we mutually agree to. Public appearances, occasional joint events, you'd be paid a lot of money. I flipped through the pages. It felt like reading about someone else's life, someone whose world worked on rules and small print. I didn't speak for a while. When I did, I asked, why me? His gaze didn't waver. Because you don't crave attention, and because I've watched you be ignored in rooms you should have led. I respect quiet people who know they don't deserve to be forgotten. The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable. It was just real. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed, an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me swipe to listen. The voicemail began mid-laughs. My mother's voice, unfiltered, talking to someone, probably one of her sisters. Jennifer, that girl always needed someone to remind her she's not the main character. Sweet, sure, but she's not made to lead. She's background. That's just how it is. The message ended. I didn't feel punched. I felt solid, like a wall had finally dropped, and I could see the structure behind it. I replayed it once, just once. Then I deleted it. Mr. Smith hadn't spoken during my reaction. He waited. I looked at the contract again, not because I needed convincing, but because I needed a moment to swallow what I'd just heard. My mother, someone I'd always defended, excused, understood, had said exactly what I had been afraid to admit. She didn't see me, not as an equal, not as her daughter fully, just a support beam. I folded the paper, not signing yet. I used to think she meant well, I murmured, not even realizing I was speaking aloud, that maybe I was just hard to love in the way she understood. But now, I don't think she ever looked for me in the room. He didn't nod, didn't offer comfort. That I appreciated. He waited for me to finish my own thought. Okay, I said, I'll do it. Mr. Smith's eyebrow lifted, more in respect than surprise. But one thing, I added, if you lie to me in any way, I walk. I don't care how many zeros are on the check. He nodded slowly. That's fair. I've lived too long on other people's terms. I'm not discussing who I am anymore. We both stood. No handshake, no smile, just a shared understanding. The drive home was quiet again, but this time I didn't feel invisible. I felt sharp, present. There was a clear mind I hadn't had in years. I parked in front of my apartment, grabbed my phone, and called the shop. 1 ring, 2. Hi, Lisa, I said when my assistant picked up. I need to step away from the store for a bit, personal reasons. A pause. Sure thing, Jennifer. You okay? I will be. I ended the call, opened the calendar app, and added a new contact to a new profile, Mrs. Smith. I hung up with Lisa, then took a breath that felt bigger than the room around me. The call had been brief, but every word of it carried weight. I wasn't asking for permission, I was informing. And that shift, however small, mattered. By Thursday afternoon, the sun was out in full force, shining gold across the streets of downtown Cityville. I parked 3 blocks away from Elegant Gems, not because I had to, but because I needed the walk. Each step helped calm my mind, center my thoughts. When I walked into the shop, the atmosphere changed. Jennifer, welcome back. The assistant manager beamed as she approached with a light touch on my elbow. We just got the new arrivals. Would you like sparkling water while you browse? I smiled, a little surprised. Not long ago, this staff barely made eye contact, but now I had a last name that carried weight in the building. I'm just looking, I said, but thank you. I wandered over to a display near the back, letting my fingers hover above a simple gold necklace. Simple, clean, not too flashy. Something I would have picked for myself before the contract, before the voicemail, before Mrs. Smith. I was holding it up against my collarbone when I heard the It hit me before I even turned around. Sharp, fake, unmistakable. Sarah and our mother. Their voices moved closer before I even had time to set the necklace down. When I finally turned, they were already 10 feet away, gliding in like they owned the place. Sarah's eyes met mine and froze for a moment. "Jennifer," she said, as if my name tasted strange in her mouth. I didn't answer. She tilted her head slightly. "Or are you just returning someone else's kindness?" The way she said it, just loud enough for 2 nearby staff members to hear, just soft enough to pretend innocence, made my stomach clench. Our mother looked at me, then quickly away. "Jennifer, don't make this awkward. Your sister has an appointment." I nodded once. "I'm not the one making it awkward." Sarah stepped closer, her smile tight. "Honestly, Jen, it's getting weird. You showing up in places like this, dressing like you suddenly found yourself in a magazine. Sarcastic. You're not fooling anyone. You've always needed someone to carry you. Now you've found someone rich enough to make it look real." I let her words settle, let the silence stretch so she started to fidget. Then I said, clear and steady, "If I make you uncomfortable just by existing, maybe it's time you thought about why." Sarah blinked. "I'm not your echo anymore, so stop calling me noise." That's when the air changed. People stopped pretending not to listen. Our mother opened her mouth, then closed it, unsure of what to say. For once, I didn't try to help her. Sarah's face turned red. She took a step forward, just a little too fast. "Oh, you want to act like a big shot now," she said. "Fine, act like one." She stood inches from me, her voice low now, eyes narrowed. "But don't think I won't call it what it is. You're using someone just like you always accused me of doing." I let her words settle, let the silence stretch so she started to fidget. Then I said, clear and steady, "If I make you uncomfortable just by existing, maybe it's time you thought about why." Sarah blinked. "I'm not your echo anymore, so stop calling me noise." That's when the air changed. People stopped pretending not to listen. Our mother opened her mouth, then closed it, unsure of what to say. For once, I didn't try to help her. Sarah's face turned red. She took a step forward just a little too fast. "Oh, you want to act like a big shot now," she said. "Fine, act like one." She stood inches from me, her voice low now, eyes narrowed. "But don't think I won't call it what it is. You're using someone just like you always accused me of doing." Her hand twitched, a reflex, maybe, maybe not. I didn't move. Her eyes dared me to flinch, to step back like I always had, but I stayed still. The clerk behind the counter took an awkward step toward us, probably unsure if this was a personal matter or needed security. Everything around us felt frozen. One wrong word could start a storm. She didn't touch me first, she spoke first. "This is why you'll always be a background character." And then the slap landed, hard, fast, and louder than anyone expected, even her. The sound cracked across the shop like glass breaking. I didn't move. Not when her hand hit my face, not when the tray beside me clattered to the ground, not even when my necklace slipped from my fingers and bounced twice before settling at the base of a velvet stand. The room stopped. No one breathed. The sales associate froze mid-step. A couple near the register turned toward us. Someone's phone made the distinct click camera. My cheek burned, but my hands didn't go up. My mouth didn't open. I just bent slowly, carefully, and picked up the necklace. My fingers trembled, but I stood tall. I didn't say a word. Not yet. Then, just as the silence was beginning to crack under its own weight, another voice cut through it, clear, cold, and undeniable. "Touch my wife again and see what happens." Heads turned, phones lifted, gasps echoed against marble and crystal. Mr. Smith. He stood just inside the doorway, still in his dark coat, one hand in his pocket. His presence wasn't loud, but it didn't need to be. He didn't step forward like a man defending someone he owned. He moved like someone protecting what he respected. The moment he crossed the showroom, the entire room shifted around him. Sarah blinked, stunned. Wife? He ignored her. Instead, he came directly to me and placed a steady hand at the center of my back, not controlling, but supportive. To Sarah, he said, voice flat as stone, I saw everything, and you're lucky she didn't hit back because I might. Our mother sputtered. Excuse me, but this is a family misunderstanding. There's no need to make it worse. He didn't even glance at her. He raised a hand slightly, and from the far end of the store, 2 security guards in dark suits stepped forward. Not a word was exchanged, just that simple signal. I don't care whose sister you are, Mr. Smith continued. This isn't a street corner. This is my property, and no one assaults my wife and stays. Sarah took a half step back. You can't be serious. I'm always serious, he said, especially when it comes to who's allowed in my life or my stores. She looked at me now, confused and trapped. You married him? What is this? Some show? I finally met her eyes. For the first time, I wasn't afraid of what she'd see in mine. You didn't ask where I've been, I said quietly. Maybe you should have. The air in the room thickened. Phones were recording now. A young woman near the bridal section whispers to her friend, Is that really her husband? Mr. Smith remained calm. This location, I own it, and as of now, your sister is no longer welcome. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Our mother stepped forward, clearly trying to save whatever control she thought she still had. Mr. Smith, with all due respect, this is a private matter. We don't air our family business. This became public the second someone raised a hand in my store, he interrupted. And trust me, nothing about what just happened will remain quiet. Your daughter saw to that. The security staff reached them now. One pointed toward the door. Sarah stood frozen, face pale, lips parted in disbelief. I didn't mean, she began, but her voice didn't carry anymore. Not in that room. Not today. They were escorted out slowly, without fighting, but with eyes on them the entire way. And when the glass doors finally closed behind them, the silence broke all at once. Murmurs, questions, phones slipping into pockets. I didn't speak. Mr. Smith turned to me and asked softly, Are you okay? I nodded once, though my jaw still ached and my hand clutched the necklace a little too tight. The manager approached, asking if I needed anything. Water, a quiet space, an escort home. I declined. Instead, I walked to the counter and asked the associate, Can you box this up, please? She nodded, her eyes kind now, her manner changed. As I waited, I caught my reflection in one of the display mirrors. Same face, same eyes, but something in me had changed. I didn't feel small anymore. Sometimes it wears a quiet smile and watches the world adjust. That sentence stayed with me longer than I expected. It wasn't something Mr. Smith said. It wasn't even something I'd read. It was the feeling I carried all week after the jewelry store. I didn't rush to fill the silence that followed that moment. I let it breathe. I let it settle. 1 week later, a cream-colored envelope arrived at the shop with my name written by hand in dark blue ink. Inside was an invitation to the Cityville Women's Empowerment Gala head table. I thought it was a mistake. I scanned the list again, flipping the card front to back. My name, but no mention of Sarah. When I brought it home and set it on the counter, Mr. Smith glanced at it and said casually, They reached out through my office. I'm a sponsor. They asked if my wife would be attending. There was no smirk, no extra meaning in his voice, just fact, no show. And you said? I said I'd let her decide. I took a slow breath, then nodded. The night of the gala, I wore a deep blue gown. Not flashy, not stiff, just right. Something I chose for myself without needing approval from others. My hair pulled back, my earrings simple, the kind of presence that didn't have to announce itself to be known. When I arrived at the venue, the event staff greeted me by name. One of them walked me to my table. The centerpiece was a glass sculpture shaped like a wave. The name card read, Jennifer Barry Smith. I stood there a moment longer than I should have, fingertips touching the edge of the chair. The room filled quickly. Business leaders, local politicians, charity directors, women in pantsuits, and women in pearls. I offered polite hellos, but didn't chase conversation. And then I saw her. Sarah walked through the front doors with two women I vaguely recognized from her workplace. She was radiant, polished as ever, her usual, already in use. She approached the check-in table confidently. The woman behind the tablet paused, then typed again. "Sorry, what was the last name?" "Harrington," Sarah said, eyebrows lifting as if the woman had insulted her. Another pause, fingers typing again. The woman's tone didn't change. "I don't have you on the list." Sarah, that same laugh, she used to dismiss everything, mistakes, hurt feelings, facts she didn't like. "There must be a mix-up," she said. "I was asked to present. I've been on panels here for 3 years." "I understand," the woman said evenly, "but I don't have you listed for this year. Perhaps there was an oversight." Or she didn't finish the sentence. Sarah's smile flickered, just a tiny bit, but it was enough. Enough for me to recognize it. Confusion, meeting, consequence. She looked up past the check-in, scanning the room. Her eyes landed on me. We locked eyes for just a breath. I didn't move, I didn't wave. I simply held her gaze, steady. Then she looked away, turned around, and exited as gracefully as she could before the cameras caught her. Later that night, after I returned home and kicked off my heels, I poured a glass of water and sat by the window. The gala program lay beside me on the table. I didn't read it again. I'd lived it. I opened my phone and saw a missed call from a number I hadn't saved, but the voicemail transcribed itself on screen. It was my aunt, my mother's sister. The message was short, a little shaky. "I thought you should know. Her oldest said something at dinner the other night. Said she always made Mom love her without trying. Maybe that's why she hits hard, because you never needed to raise your voice to be heard." I listened to it twice, then placed the phone down gently beside my glass. I didn't call back. I didn't need to. Instead, I opened my planner, turned to the next week, and wrote 3 words in the margin. Board application, Smith Foundation. Not revenge, not rebellion, just forward. I didn't need noise. I didn't need a spotlight. I just needed space. And now I had it. The drawer gave a soft click as it shut. The photo folded inside, resting where it belonged. No longer on display, no longer pretending. I stood there for a moment longer, letting the silence fill the space around me like water, becoming still after a ripple. A few days had passed since the gala, enough time for the noise to die down, for whispers to shift toward newer topics. But inside, things hadn't gone quiet. They'd rearranged themselves. That morning, an envelope arrived at my apartment, no return address. The handwriting on the front was familiar, slanted, careful, and hesitant. My father's. I sat at the kitchen table, fingers brushing over the seal before opening it. Inside, 1 page, handwritten, no opening line, no date, just this. I knew. I watched. I chose silence. I regret that silence more than anything. You deserved better than my inaction. That was it. No excuses, no attempt to change the past, just an acknowledgement. The kind that had never come when it would have mattered more, but came anyway, because maybe he realized that waiting for the perfect time was how people like him lost their daughters. I folded the letter carefully and slipped it into the drawer where I kept bills and medical documents, not as a keepsake, but as a record. The next day, I met Sarah at a small cafe near the courthouse. No cameras, no audience, just 2 sisters sitting across from each other at a corner table that smelled faintly of coffee and vanilla. She showed up late, of course, sunglasses on, jacket buttoned, even though the afternoon sun was strong. "So," she said, sliding into the seat across from me, "you really married him?" I looked at her, not with anger, but with the clear mind of someone who no longer needed to explain herself. "Not everything is about you," I replied, "and not everything about me needs to be explained anymore." She scoffs, rolling her eyes. "You act like I'm the bad guy in all this."
You made your choices. I just stopped letting them hurt me. She didn't respond, just stirred the iced coffee she hadn't touched. I reached into my bag and pulled out a small envelope, placed it between us. What's this? Open it. She did. Inside was the necklace from the store, the one that had dropped when she slapped me. There was a note. You always said it looked better on you. I'm giving it back, but I'm not giving you me. She stared at it for a long time. Her mouth parted like she might argue, but no sound came out, and I didn't stay long enough to hear if she found one. I left without looking back. Back at home, I opened my laptop and finished my application to join the Smith Foundation board, not because I needed to prove anything, not because of Mr. Smith, but because I had a voice now and a platform that didn't require permission. That afternoon, I walked 2 blocks to the post office and mailed the envelope myself. No delivery service, no assistant, just me waiting in line like everyone else, holding something that no longer weighed me down. When I returned, I pulled up the form for my legal records. Name, Jennifer Barry Smith. Not for show, not to spite anyone, because I chose it. That evening, I sat by the window with a cup of mint tea. The sun dipped below the rooftops, casting long shadows over the walls. I reached into the drawer beside me and pulled out one last thing, a photo from childhood. My mother and sister beaming in the front, posed like queens. Me in the corner, only half in the frame, almost invisible. I looked at it for a while, then folded it in half, not with anger, just finality. And I placed it in the same drawer where I had filed the letter from my father. But not everything stays closed forever. Some drawers creak open again, not from indecision, but because life finds ways to remind you that even closed chapters leave their scent behind. And that morning, a knock at the door wasn't a person, but a delivery, a box. No note, no return address, but I knew. I didn't open it. I set it beside my entryway table, beside the photo albums I hadn't touched in years, and the umbrella stand I still hadn't emptied since last winter. I didn't need to read what might be inside. Some apologies come too late, and others don't come at all. Both can live in the same silence.
That afternoon, I drove downtown. The notary's office was quiet, the receptionist soft-spoken. I had my papers ready, no hesitation. The man across the desk asked twice if I wanted to reconsider, as if giving up family claims was an act of desperation instead of freedom. I'm building a different future, I told him, signing with a steady hand. There was no ceremony to it, no one waiting outside to clap or question, just me, a pen, and a document that cut me loose from a weight I didn't owe anymore. On the drive home, my phone rang. Aunt Carol. I pulled into a shaded parking lot before answering. "Hey, honey," she said, voice familiar in that warm, comforting way. I didn't want to leave this in a message. I waited. You know, for a long time, I thought keeping quiet made things easier for everyone, that if I stayed out of it, I wasn't part of the problem. A pause, a shaky, but watching you these last few weeks, it made me realize silence is just permission in disguise. And you, Jennifer, you didn't just break a pattern. You rebuilt something better. Tears welled, but didn't fall. That was the difference. Now I could feel everything without it destroying me. "Thank you," I said. "No, sweet girl, thank you." Later that week, I stood in the Smith Foundation's conference room, facing a small group of donors, advisors, and staff. Mr. Smith was there off to the side, arms crossed, watching but not controlling. I took the microphone. "My name is Jennifer Barry Smith," I said, "and today I want to introduce our newest idea, the Quiet Rise Fund." A slide clicked into place behind me. Simple white background, 4 words in soft gray font, "For the Girls Silenced." I spoke not to impress, but to connect, about women who had been pushed into corners, treated as helpers, denied their stories, and how this fund would help them write new ones. When I stepped down from the podium, no one stood. There was no dramatic applause, just quiet nods, real ones. After the meeting, I walked through a community garden our foundation had helped reopen. Rows of herbs, tomatoes, marigolds. A few children ran along the dirt paths giggling. A little girl in a faded sun hat approached me, holding a potted plant. "Why are you here?" she asked. I knelt beside her, brushing dirt from my palm.
Because someone like me once needed someone like me now, I said. She nodded seriously, like only little kids can be, then offered me the plant. I took it. That evening, after rinsing my hands and setting the small plant on my kitchen sill, I sat quietly on the couch. The unopened box from my mother was still there. I picked it up, turned it once in my hands, then placed it at the back of the closet behind winter scarves and last year's tax papers. Not to forget, just to move it out of sight. Some things don't need to be open to be understood, and some battles don't need a winner, just an end. They told me I was born to support someone else's spotlight. I looked out the window as twilight settled over the street. Turns out, I was just meant to build my own room with its own light. Sometimes the loudest strength is the one that never raises its voice. Jennifer's story reminds us that being overlooked doesn't mean you're weak. It just means your moment hasn't arrived yet. And when it does, it won't need permission.